Whoa! This is the illusion. Reporting from somewhere on spaceship Earth. I think I should call these episodes radar pings because I put my radar ping out there and I got one back. And I'm going to read it here. I will leave the author anonymous. I think it's better that way. And so here we go, dude. All right, so I got this email yesterday, and it's from that last video where I said send in your letters, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. So here we go. This is the letter. I realized since roughly around the age of 16 or 17 that living off the grid was the dream of my personal solution to a lot of problems we now face in the world. The last few years, I've really tried to get the ball moving. I've been making small steps to get there, such as saving money to buy land, growing vegetables, and trying out different careers that will help me in building my own property. I am not sure I am the type to be a carpenter, yet I enjoy it a lot, and my tutors in college seem impressed with me. I'm unsure what avenue to take. I prefer the old style of carpentry with joinery, dovetail, joints, etc. Yet there are very few jobs anymore doing bespoke furniture, staircases, etc. in my area. Should I get going in the world of modern carpentry where I don't agree with the waste and materials they use in construction, or should I try and find something which aligns with my values much more? And then he sends me a response later. I got sidetracked a fair bit on my main question really was, how can I intertwine my life and God's will to get my goal quicker? Or should I say God's goal as well, hoping that it is also what he has planned for me? Or is this unfeasible as God has his own plan for me and timing, not my timing? I do think that things will come on their own time if you complete the actions working towards that, like having my little off-grid plot, but sometimes you feel things could be progressing faster than they are. How do we interact with God when you need to take the steps to get in the right direction? All right, I'm gonna go with the first thing is about the carpentry thing. I mean, I think right off the bat is having a skill set of practical things you can do with your hands is super important moving forward, whether that be a plumber, an electrician, a welder, a mechanic, anything that requires you to use tools in your hands, I think is a skill set you should have put in your back pocket. If it doesn't have to be something you pursue as your life's goal or whatever. It's just a great skill set to have, because it means that no matter where you are, you will always have the ability to be employed or be of service, and that's what it's all about. Secondly, it's about what kind of carpentry. So I'm a big believer of there's kind of two sorts of carpentry. There's being a craftsman, and then there's just wood butchering. And I would say that most modern construction / carpentry is wood butchering, and then there's being a craftsman. And those two avenues kind of have a different level of commitment to them. If you want to be a craftsman with wood, you sort of need to become an apprentice to someone who is a craftsman and gain all their knowledge, and that's a dedicated time frame. And I think it's a super valid pursuit. I wouldn't get too caught up on where the world is with supporting that sort of endeavor, because that is a skill set that you can apply. I mean, go look at some of those craftsmen on YouTube. They've taken their skill set and have turned it into a money-making career, because that level of craftsmanship will never go away. Yeah, it's not your common thing, but people will pay. And you become a highly qualified craftsman in the area of woodworking, you will always be able to pick your price. The other one is more practical, right? Being a wood butcher, that's sort of the column I fit into. Is it's super practical to know how to build a house or how to frame a house or how to just be comfortable building things and knowing how to level and plumb and what the basic grid pattern is for construction and why things are the way things are. And what I will say with the issue of waste on these job sites is one man gathers what another man spills. If you go back into my YouTube videos about, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, that's when I was picking up all that scrap wood from those job sites, and I started making started my first little like business, the first iteration of Talons Out, which was Talons Out Studio, where I was making all the wood frames and stuff, all from upcycled scrap wood that I was fishing out of job site dumpsters. And let me tell you, man, there's a lot of it. And yeah, some of the materials are unsavory. But I think as a former tree hugger, or I'm still a tree hugger, one of the things I realized was that was sort of the full circle, was to respect the wood is to gather the offcuts and all the scrap pieces and turn them into something. I mean, I got that whole stack of twisted cedar, Alaskan cedar, tongue and groove that couldn't go into the roof we were building, like huge lengths of it. And I took all that stuff and made things out of it, made furniture out of it, made frames and mirrors and all sorts of stuff out. And then at that same job site, I got all those offcuts of that oak, and I still have some of that stuff floating around. So I would say that the waste issue is solvable by you participating in taking the waste and making something out of it, right? And there's another cottage industry. So I'm all about encouraging people to pursue trades. I think trades are the answer. If you're a young person, like, get yourself a trade, and then you can go pursue a career in lofty pursuits, but you'll always have a trade to fall back on. Unfortunately, most people who have pursued lofty pursuits don't have a trade to fall back on, so they're subject to the whims of the market. And then you get to this thing with with God's path and your off-grid setup is you got to show up, right? And that's where, like, there's that sort of mutual symbiotic relationship with God is you got to show up, but you can't question the path. Like, God does have a plan for you, and it may not be what you thought it was, but God will actually co-create with you, right? By the very nature of God wants to see what you're going to do with the gifts he's given you. Like, that's sort of the game. So along the way, God will make it happen if that's what's meant to happen. And I think the underlying principle of it all is to be of service, right? If you want to get your tiny off-grid situation, well, is that a selfish pursuit, or is that a pursuit to be of service to God in a bigger way, right? And I think that, for me, is the key to this whole thing. At the end of the day, like, whatever I'm doing up here, my underlying mission is ultimately to be of service to other people in various ways, whether that's handing out my extra zucchinis, or it's showing people that you can do it, or uploading the struggles I have doing it so that you don't have to make those struggles again. And I'm just on one misnomer. I think we got to stop using the word off the grid and change it to, like, less grid reliance, because there's no such thing as off the grid. It's less grid reliance, like sort of homesteading. I think that's where we're bumping into a sort of nomenclature issue, dude, which sets us in a weird way where we almost don't feel like we're accomplishing things, because we're not really getting that far off the grid. Like the more I've removed myself from the grid, the more dependent upon the grid I am in a weird way. And I've kind of made some videos touching on that lately, but I would definitely encourage you, young man, to keep in your pursuit, keep in faith, and pick up those skill sets. Is like I said, one of them is practical and one of them is more of a commitment. Look, you can go to a job site anywhere with a skill set and get on there and learn how to cut wood. And what I would just say is you tuck under the smart guy and learn everything you can so that you have it later. I mean, look, you forget half of it anyhow, but like you get an intuitive understanding of what you're doing. So that way, when people do show up, when you do have to call in other people of other trades, you kind of know what you're looking at. You know what a good craftsman is. You know what a good tradesman is. So that when you do bring them in to help you with your off-grid setup or fill in what you don't know, like you know what a quality person is, right? Like, and I think that's a hugely important thing is being able to inundate ourselves in these trades just so we can see the lens of what the world of trades are and craftsmanship is. And we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? So you can do both. You can do all of it. I don't think you should put any limitations on yourself, I think, but the whole on the God thing, you have to show up. You have to keep putting the next foot forward. And sometimes those dead end paths are like, look, just to back it up a little bit, how did I end up doing the carpentry thing? I was sitting at a bar one day and someone asked me to come paint with them. And I needed some money, and I went and painted a house with this dude, and his brother came by like 4 days into it and it's like, hey, can I borrow your guy to come help me do some stuff over at a job? And he's like, yeah. And I went over there, and the brother like basically shanghaied me into his thing because I was the one thing I had. I was gung-ho and I was reliable and I showed up on time. And that's how I got my start in carpentry. Was I began working for a dude painting. So we allow God to unspool how God's supposed to unspool. So please keep sending in your letters or whatever. I hope that helped you out. And with that said, links down below, dude. Join, become a member, and use the name tags. Treat yourself kindly, and God has blessed us.